Can Zhen Huan, blessed with both beauty and talent, truly outshine all in the imperial harem and enjoy everlasting favor? On the 7th day of early June, under the scorching heat, Xianling and the Empress left the palace to pray for rain. A crowd saw them off at the palace gate, watching the grand procession leave in an orderly manner. Suddenly, Lady Xihua let out a light laugh. This time, only the Empress accompanies His Majesty for the prayer. I fear it's not just rain from the heavens they're seeking, perhaps an imperial sun as well, to truly fulfill the Empress's wishes. In the presence of all, Lady Xihua spoke such irreverent words, leaving everyone else too apprehensive to utter a single word more. Under the glaring sun, all was silent. Then she suddenly turned to look at me, her delicate features flawless even under the harsh sun. She was indeed beautiful and strong as well. She looked at me with a half-smile, continuing the topic. "What do you think, concubine Huan?" I was momentarily taken aback but quickly responded calmly and firmly. "If the Empress is indeed with child, it would naturally be a joyous occasion for the great Zhou dynasty. And you, madam, would be pleased as well, wouldn't you?" She smiled. "Of course. I would expect concubine Huan to be delighted as well." I met her gaze steadily. "The Empress is a paragon of virtue for the entire realm. Only those with ulterior motives would find displeasure in this." She shaded her eyes from the sun, squinting slightly as if speaking to herself. "Your eloquence has improved." She didn't continue, but her gaze sharply and silently swept across my cheek, leaving a sharp, subtle pain. Finally, her eyes rested on my slightly bulging abdomen, her expression complex and inscrutable. Thus, the first provocation after Xianling and the Empress left the palace faded away silently, and Lady Xihua's hostility towards me was known to all. I thought we could continue this evenly matched confrontation, but the storm came much quicker than expected. One morning, as I was dressing in front of the mirror, I suddenly felt a faint soreness and swelling in my lower abdomen, and my waist was unbearably sore and weak. Looking in the mirror, my complexion was pale and sickly, which took me by surprise. Huan Bai was somewhat panicked, hurrying over to support me to lie down, asking, "What's wrong, miss?" Not wanting to worry her, despite feeling quite alarmed myself, I forced a smile and said, "It's nothing serious, probably just the strain of dealing with Lady Xihua these past few days." Huan Bai, still young and inexperienced, looked panicked. Jean, she hurried over and said, "Your Highness has been complaining of weakness and fatigue these past few days. Perhaps you should drink some warm water and rest. I'll go and call for Dr. Zhang immediately." I managed a weak nod. Just as Jean she stepped out, a eunuch, a servant from Lady Xihua's side, came to convey a message. He was polite, but his face was expressionless as he mechanically said, "Lady Xihua invites concubine Huan to Misho Palace to discuss a matter." I was startled and turned to him. "What matter to discuss?" With a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes, he said, "Now that Lady Xihua is overseeing the affairs of the inner palace on behalf of the Empress, all the noble ladies and princesses must attend her commands." Lu Zhu angrily retorted from the side, "Haven't you seen that my mistress is unwell? The Empress herself said recently that my mistress is pregnant and can be excused from the daily greetings. Surely Lady Xihua's affairs can be missed even more so." Before Lu Zhu could finish, another person entered, none other than Zhou Ninghai, the most trusted eunuch by Lady Xihua's side. He bowed deeply and upon rising began to scold the eunuch who had come before in a low voice. "Foolish thing, you dawdle even when summoning concubine Huan, wasting time. Go to the Ministry of Punishments and receive 30 lashes." I understood well enough. Though he was scolding the junior eunuch, his real aim was to admonish me indirectly. A surge of anger welled up in my chest, but I was too stifled to speak, and I glanced at Lu Zhu. Just as Lu Zhu was about to speak, Zhou Ninghai turned to me with a smile plastered across his face, saying respectfully, "Our Lady knows that your Highness is delicate and specifically sent me to invite you, to avoid any mishap from those thoughtless servants. Besides, you can't not attend. Though by rank you are just below concubine Xian, perhaps none of the other consorts are as noble as you. If you don't attend, how can Lady Xihua manage the affairs of the inner palace? Lady Xihua's oversight of the inner palace is by the Empress's orders, and you must not defy the Empress." Though his words were slick, they were logical. I found myself at a loss for words, and as I hesitated, he quickly added, "Of course, concubine Tian and noble consort Duan are too ill to attend, but all the other consorts are already there. Even Beauty is waiting, only you are missing." Thus, I could no longer excuse myself, knowing full well that I could not avoid being slighted by her. But etiquette must not be neglected. Moreover, the Empress had also instructed me to endure no matter what during these days. Struggling to my feet, I changed and touched up my makeup to maintain a healthy appearance. I could not afford to show any sign of weakness before her. Still, I was late in the end. Lady Xihua's Mixiu Palace was resplendent, with layers of golden beast ridges and beams and columns painted with auspicious patterns of soaring cheilants, as lifelike and splendidly colored as phoenixes, not inferior in grandeur or demeanor. Supported by Jin Shi, I climbed the stairs and knelt before Lady Xihua in accordance with the ritual. In the hall, a large ice sculpture provided a cool, refreshing sensation. An unknown incense burned in the purple gold lily cauldron by the main hall, its sweet, smooth fragrance intoxicating and soothing, making one's bones feel soft and comfortable beyond words. Lady Xihua sat upright, her long pearl tassels hanging beside her cheeks, idly waving a mud gold peony-colored fan. Her eyes were half closed, but her meticulously drawn distant mountain eyebrows were strikingly bright. My late arrival made the already tense atmosphere even stiffer. After I explained my reasons, she did not make things difficult for me and allowed me to take my seat. Her easy leniency left me somewhat uneasy and suspicious. During the refreshment time, the atmosphere loosened a bit, and Ling Rong suddenly asked, "The fragrance in the palace is delightful. May I ask what kind of incense is being used?" Lady Xihua, with a proud smile, responded, "Beauty has a keen nose. This is a special incense called Huan Yi Xiang, meticulously crafted by the Emperor's orders for our palace alone. It's unique to our quarters, so I presume none of you have encountered it before." Her public declaration made everyone a bit uncomfortable and envious, but being of such high status, she naturally wouldn't care. Ling Rong chuckled softly, humbly replying, "My experiences are limited, unlike the lady's vast knowledge." After some casual conversation, the consorts of the 6 palaces fell silent again, attentively listening to her detailing palace affairs. My body's soreness gradually eased as she spoke about reforming the palace's discipline. The matter of concubine Tian's pregnancy and the suicide of consort K is past, and I do not wish to dredge up old affairs. However, it highlights that there are many with ill intentions within these walls. Furthermore, there have been numerous quarrels and fights among the palace maids and eunuchs lately, showing a complete disregard for order. It's time for a thorough rectification. Although Consort Jing also had the authority to assist in managing the 6 palaces, Lady Xihua's continuous monologue left her no room to interject. As everyone listened in agreement, Lady Xihua merely stroked her slender, jade-like fingernails, subtly changing the subject. Being pregnant does seem to bring some arrogance due to favoritism. Glancing at me with a sudden sharp tone, she accused, "Concubine Huan, do you realize your fault?" I wasn't particularly interested in her speech, so her sudden stern rebuke caught me off guard. Standing up and bowing my head, I replied, "I'm not sure what I've done to anger the lady so, but I'm willing to listen and learn." Her eyes flashed with malice as she commanded, "Today, when the consorts gathered in Mixiu Palace, concubine Huan Zhanshi, you were unjustifiably late, showing disrespect to my authority. Kneel down." Her demand was clearly meant to intimidate and assert dominance over the 6 palaces. After all, whether the Empress was present or not, everyone knew who was currently favored. With her own significant background, such actions were unnecessary and only served to alienate others. Being pregnant, I couldn't attend to Xianling as frequently in the short term, so her urgency seemed misplaced. Yet, I remembered the Empress and Xianling's advice and knew I had to endure this moment of frustration. Slowly kneeling down, her anger did not subside, growing more severe. "If you're so disrespectful now, what will happen if you bear the imperial heir? Would the entire harem have to follow your surname, Zhen?" I wasn't one to suffer in silence indefinitely. Endless tolerance would only embolden her further. And with the injustice done to Chun'er, I couldn't simply step back. I bowed my head slightly, maintaining a modest posture. Though the lady is angry, I must speak. The Emperor and Empress surely cared for Consort K during her pregnancy, Not for her sake but for the sake of the dynasty and its ancestors. My presence here today is not without reason, and even if I have offended, there are the Dowager Empress, the Emperor, and the Empress as the heir's mother above me. The notion of the harem following the Zhen surname truly fills me with dread. Beneath her high, elaborately styled hair, her carefully made-up face tightened. Her eyebrows, like distant mountains filled with dark green, made her phoenix eyes appear even more imposing and commanding without anger. With a slight increase in her breathing, the fan in her hand snapped loudly against the armrest of her seat, startling everyone into exchanging looks and quickly sitting up straight. Consort Jing hurriedly tried to smooth things over. After speaking for so long, the lady must be thirsty. Perhaps a cup of tea would be a good break. And let concubine Huan stand up to speak as well. Eyebrow Pavilion paid close attention to me, her gaze returning to Lady Xihua with a deep, blue-tinged resentment, hidden like the edge of a blade. Lady Xihua, seemingly oblivious, continued to stare at me, finally pronouncing each word deliberately. A woman's virtue is paramount. Concubine Huan Zhanshe, with your clever words and appearance, you've been disrespectful and insubordinate to me. Her thin, brightly colored lips pressed tightly together in anger, she declared. As punishment, you will kneel outside Mixiu Palace and recite the women's admonitions as a lesson.
Follow us to avoid getting lost and enjoy endless exciting stories. For more content, please go to the Story Wall homepage to view more exciting novels.